We are really on a mission to help people transform their lives, to rewire and reprogram their brains and their bodies and their nervous system, and really tap into a more elevated way of living life.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey there. Welcome to the Small Business Black Holes podcast with Alan Pentz, where we help you navigate today's chaos with precision. Your host, Alan Pentz, has 25 years of experience working in business and government, and he knows how the old rules have fallen apart. Each episode, we'll explore how to thrive in this new landscape by mastering the small business black holes while everyone else is still figuring them out. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Small Business Black Holes podcast. I got two very special guests today living in awesome places that are better than where you live, Fort Collins and San Diego. And we have Rachel and Tiffany that are representatives of Golden Rule. So welcome, ladies, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So give us the scoop. What is being a representative of Golden Rule?
Well, essentially in some ways you could look at it as Golden Rule is at the surface level a products company. But really, we are so much more than that. We are really on a mission to help people transform their lives, to rewire and reprogram their brains and their bodies and their nervous system, and really tap into a more elevated way of living life, and really tapping into a deeper awareness and understanding of themselves and the world around them so that they can be most present, joyful mother, or empathetic, loving, caring, and really abundant leader. And so really, yes, we have products that help people do that, but it really is the work that people do with those products that creates a huge change in their lives. And so we work with using psychedelics to help people on this path. And so psychedelics really bring a deeper awareness and heart opening to people. And they're being used massively in helping people with things like PTSD, depression, anxiety, OCD, but also people just using them for wellness. There's a lot of leaders in the world that are using psychedelics and have been using them for a really long time to expand their minds, to be able to see past what they currently know and to tap deeper into their creativity and their focus. And so we are representing that. We're bringing this message to the world and really helping people understand it, really helping bridge the gap. And really what bridge the gap means is we're helping bridge the gap there has been a huge gap for people in psychedelics of like feeling comfortable with it and feeling like it's okay and feeling like it could be for them, that it's for anybody. Because ultimately it is. These are medicines that have been used by people for eons, long before us to do all of these incredible things that they do. Somewhere along the line, they got caught a bad rap and created a programming in people's minds that they were bad in some way or they couldn't use them, or really wrapped around them being drugs. And so how do we bridge that gap in helping anybody be able to see, the soccer mom that I dropped my kids off with at school, helping her feel okay to utilize these beautiful medicines, to, amazing leaders that are running companies and in the spotlight and being able to feel okay to utilize, again, these medicines to help them really expand their lives and live life more abundantly.
Oh, that's an excellent explanation. And a lot of this was kind of popularized in Michael Pollan's book. What was it? Something your mind, free your mind?
That's How to Change Your Mind.
How to Change Your Mind, right? In it, he talks about what you just did. So give us a kind of an overview of the legal landscape so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'd like to go into just like running a retail business, right? Where you're selling products. So give us an overview of where we stand for the legality of selling this.
Yeah. So our business is located out of Colorado, and it is decriminalized out of Colorado. There's only a couple of states that it's been decriminalized in. That's changing rapidly.
DC, I believe, is one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll see every single day these things are popping up. Different states are voting them and bringing them in at decriminalization in different ways. Here in Colorado, you're going to start to see, I mean, that's where I live. You're going to start to see clinics pop open right and left. They're already popping up because they're already handing out the license to do that. So the legalization, it is different in each state. So you really have to know what it looks like where you live, but that could be changing tomorrow. So it's really just staying up to date on what that looks like.
Gotcha. And how do you guys sell now? Is it through retail location? Are you distributing? Are you selling through a website or?
So it's on a website. Yeah. It's on a website, and that is really how people can purchase products. And we let people know on there that they need to understand the legality of where they live when they're ordering. And so it's helping people understand that. And then we sell online.
And it's goldenrulemushrooms.com. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, for the site. And so with that, do you have like shipping issues? Like how do you...
No.
No.
There's no shipping issues. I mean, essentially, it's just a wellness product. So there really is no shipping issues around that.
Interesting. So you're able to, but you got to keep it within a state border or is that...
No, you don't have to. It's the person understanding where they live and what the legality is of where they live. So really the liability shifts when the person chooses to ship it to themselves, understanding the legality around that.
Gotcha. And then give us an idea of the suite of products. Like what are you selling?
Yeah. So it's anywhere from, a lot of what we sell is microdosing, because a huge part of what Golden Rule is around microdosing. So I'll let Tiffany explain microdosing. And also Tiffany really understands, well, we both do, but she's so good at explaining the science behind microdosing and psychedelics in general.
Yeah. So we'll start with what is microdosing. So microdosing it's sub-perceptual, it's sub-intoxicating. So the idea is that you're working with, what's considered 1/10 to 1/20th of what would be a therapeutic dose. Again, that could change per individual, but that's kind of like the baseline of what we're working with. It's not really intended to be like a one-day, one-time experience, but it's more so like a practice that you cultivate where with mushrooms, for example, the two common medicines to microdose with are usually psilocybin mushrooms and then LSD. We offer both of those products, different lines of those products. But with mushrooms, you would microdose about 3 to 4 times a week. And then with LSD, you choose one of those. LSD, you can microdose about 2 to 3 times a week. And you want to do this for consistent practice. So 30 days minimum, 90 days maximum usually, with breaks in between. And so the idea is that you're receiving a lot of the benefits and the changes more subtly and more gradually versus all at once. And it allows you to kind of pair microdosing with certain practices that support you in receiving those benefits. Things like meditation, breath work, certain modalities that can help like regulate your nervous system or help you process certain things because of what's happening in the body and the brain when we're microdosing. It starts to bring things to the surface most often.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested. Yeah. What's the goal of microdosing?
Yeah, the goal is it's very individualized. So it's whatever you're bringing into the experience that you want to receive something out of. So for example, a lot of people will microdose to potentially taper off medication or to take a more holistic alternative route than actually going on pharmaceutical medication. That's something that we see
for
often.
like SSRIs. Is that
Exactly.
what you're talking about? Yeah. So we're talking depression, anxiety, those sorts of...
Yeah, alleviating depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, ADHD. There's incredible research and data and studies that back this. And also, like Rachel said, it's not just a therapeutic approach, it's also performance and coming up with new business, innovative ideas, accessing creativity, tapping into deep flow states for business and, athletic performance. There's so many things. And the end goal is really what you bring in and your intentions and your goals of how can you use microdosing as a tool to go deeper into something or to use it as a tool to basically arrive in that place in a more accelerated way that's going to help you unlock those areas that are kind of challenging to reach when you're kind of like day to day and not able to fully process that at times.
So say I'm a small business owner, right? And listen to this podcast, and I'm looking at it for like peak mental performance. I want to innovate or something. Like, tell me how I would use it and what the results might be.
Yeah. So we see this often, like how do I access flow states? How do I access peak performance? And a lot of times that's through microdosing, what we're talking about, right? So if you're somebody, small business, you're looking to access peak performance, I would say tapping into our product line at this point could be like our flow product or our LSD product, because that's known for supporting with, all of our products essentially are known for supporting with neuroplasticity, which it's like, okay, how do I even access peak performance? How do I even tap into that flow state? Can I do that through breath work? Can I do it through meditation? Yes, of course. All these things are tools and resources, but microdosing specifically there's science and data and research on how it's actually rewiring the brain. It's allowing the circuitries and the regions to communicate more effectively. It's creating neuroplasticity. And so when we start to tap into those perspectives and those parts of the brain, that is what's really allowing that to exist and be possible. Another part is the default mode that we all have. So that is a very active part of our brain. When we are trying to access flow states and creativity, there's all these things that can sometimes get in the way of actually being able to tap into those creative, innovative ideas that we want to reach. All of a sudden, if that part of the brain starts to quiet down, now there's room and there's space for us to actually access those perspectives that we may have not known, or they may be blocked or insert, et cetera.
So yeah, because I was thinking like, just because your brain's more neuroplastic doesn't mean it'll do something good, right? It's just neuroplastic, ready to be shaped. But if you are quieting a default mode, then something's actually happening. You don't actually have to. So just by microdosing, you're doing that. But it's a more effective, I assume, to do it and then do exercises that increase whatever thing you're after. So innovation or flow states or.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to pair it. So for example, if we go back to the business concept, it's like, you don't just microdose and then, you don't have a plan, or you don't have goals, or you don't have a direction of structure of what you're walking into. It's like, could it be supportive? Yes, of course. But it's even more accelerated, even more supportive when you have a certain direction of what you want to achieve that day. So for example, I'm a CEO and I'm looking to have a business meeting with my team, and we're going to go into a strategy session. And all of a sudden you have everybody microdosing and you have this aligned goal that you're wanting to reach. And it's like, okay, how can we utilize this resource to access more deeply the things that we want to drive forward?
Interesting. And give us kind of an idea. So you said there's like days where you take it and then you pause, and like, to be clear, you're saying it's sub-perceptual. So are you feeling something different? You're obviously not having a trip, right? But tell us how it might feel.
Yeah. So sub-intoxicating, sub-hallucinogenic, all that means is you're not tripping. You're not hallucinating. You are very normal, very grounded. In fact, it's supposed to enhance how you experience life. It's supposed to bring in more creativity, bring in a little bit of more energy. So it's very subtle. And the dose is so small that you can feel something at times, but most people sometimes don't even feel anything. But you're still receiving all the benefits with, neurobiologically speaking, what's happening to the body, what's happening to the brain with the science. And so that's really where we see it. And people will feel like more present, more open, more grounded, a little bit of increase of energy, like I shared, more creative, more productive, things along those lines.
Oh, interesting. And then you said you do it for some period of time, right? 90 days, did you say? And then you pause?
Yeah, usually 30 days to kind of like give yourself the baseline, the time to be consistent with the practice to really receive the benefits. And then usually up to 90 days, where at that point, you kind of just want to take a 1 to 2 week break to reset your body, recalibrate. A lot of times is to alleviate the tolerance buildup that can often happen. That's kind of with most things. And then at that time, you can revisit. So what's great about microdosing is it's not like, okay, I'm going to microdose for 30 days or 90 days, and then that's it. It's a practice that you can constantly bring in throughout different periods of your life. So for example, say someone microdoses 90 days, have an experience where they're focusing on alleviating anxiety, as an example. They feel like that was a great experience over 90 days. Now they're taking a 2-week reset. Now they're like, oh, okay, maybe I want to work with a different protocol. Maybe I want to work with a different medicine. Maybe I want to work with a completely different goal in mind. And that's what we see with like 95% of the people that microdose is it's constantly changing and evolving with what they need as they evolve as an individual.
And then do the effects persist past the microdosing for like whatever the thing they focused on was?
Yeah. So because of the rewiring that's happening in the brain and all the neuroplasticity, the goal is that you're reinstalling new productive habits and letting go of old habits and patterns that aren't allowing you to live in that full elevated state that you're desiring. And so that's why you want to pair it with certain modalities and certain practices so that you're basically taking advantage of the window being more open and malleable and plastic. It's like, okay, when I'm more in this malleable, open neuroplastic state, that's where I'm more adaptive to making changes. That's where I'm more open and there's more of a desire to go into those things that are very unserving in their own ways. How could I let go of those during this period of microdosing while also bringing in these lifestyle habits and these practices that are going to reinstall new ways that become new, healthier habits of just how I live my life. And so that's what you see.
And so with these other things that you're doing, the goals and other habits you're trying to do beyond just the psilocybin or LSD, are you guys providing that stuff too? Or is it your products just pair outside of that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Rachel was speaking into is, yes, we have these amazing products, but you have to understand how to work with the products and all the things that come with having a great experience. And so we have a program, we have a 30-day microdosing experience program where we're teaching people how to actually microdose and we're taking them through this 30-day experience. And that's filled with modalities and breath work and meditation and all kinds of things to support the practice. We have community calls where we're constantly resourcing our community with all the questions that they have and also resourcing them with certain practices that would be specific to supporting their experience. We also have a course that just came out, and that's teaching people all about these practices as well. And that's more self-guided at home at your own pace, which is wonderful. Anything else, Rachel, that you want to add to that?
We have free community calls every month. I don't know if you mentioned that, but we have the community calls that anybody can join each month to get their questions answered. But yeah, education is a huge piece for us.
That's cool. And how much does it cost? Like, they're different products, but give us an idea of the range.
Yeah, so it ranges anywhere from $70 for like a month's worth of products. And then we have something that we haven't touched on yet is we have larger dose products. We have more macro dose products for people to have larger journeys. So we have like a ceremonial chocolate bar, Euphoria truffles. And we also do educate people as well on how to use larger doses.
Do you just put on an Allman Brothers album when you do that? Or no? Sorry, I had to make that check.
Could. But I think the comparison is important. So like microdosing is a very soft, in a way, like experience in that it's not going to feel like hard. You may have emotions that rise while you're doing it that you have to work through because essentially it brings everything to the surface. So like an SSRI is going to block your emotions. So it's not going to allow you to feel anything. Essentially, it numbs you in some way. And then what the difference is with like microdosing is it allows you to feel your emotions, work through them. It'll arise onto the surface. So then you essentially can move on from it, right? So you're not staying stuck in the same loop. But I share that in that microdosing is a little bit of a softer experience where a macrodose can sometimes be very uncomfortable for people. It is an amazing experience if you surrender to it, and so much can come from it. You can have what you do over 90 days of microdosing. You essentially could have all of that work done in one macrodose. But not a lot of people want to do the macrodose because, again, it could feel very uncomfortable for them. So you could microdose for, 30 to 90 days and get maybe the same results that you'd get with doing like one or two macrodoses.
Interesting. Okay. And then obviously, how do you deal with like guidance and stuff on macro? Because it seems like micro, you're sub hallucinogenic. So like, I don't think like you're going to macrodose and get on your monthly community call necessarily, would you? Like how like, do you guys recommend that people work with?
Yes, we do recommend that people have guidance. We really do. When we're guiding people into a macrodose and giving them education on it, which we do provide that education through, one was our self-guided program. Like you can take yourself through and understand how to do a macrodose. But that being said, we're more teaching people on a lower macrodose. So we're teaching people anywhere from like 1 to 3 grams. Anything from like 3 to 5 grams, we don't recommend that you do that solo. We recommend that you do sit with somebody who can guide you through it.
And then what's a microdose in grams?
A microdose is anywhere from 50 milligrams to 500 milligrams.
Okay, interesting. So then going back to this as a business, right? Are you facing the same, you hear this with cannabis, like you can't expense your, certain things in the business. You have banking problems. How is that manifesting? Like, do you have all those similar things that you've got to deal with? You can't write off cost of goods sold and things like that.
Yeah. So it is very, very similar. It is very similar.
Yeah.
And same with banking. It's the exact same with banking. So we have a unique way of payment processing because of that. So, it is a unique checkout experience. But it's the only way to do it because, even with, I can walk anywhere almost in any city right now and buy THC straight from a shop right now.
Right.
But yet they still have the banking issues, right? So, of course, we're going to have the same issues.
Yeah. And so you say unique. Do you want to say anything more about that, or you just want to leave it the way it is?
When people go, they'll experience it. It's unique.
Okay. Well, I encourage you to go and check it out.
It's user friendly though, so keep that in mind. It's a very stable process.
It is user friendly. It's just not what people are used to.
Yeah.
Right. So does it make it challenging? Obviously that challenges your profitability if you don't get tax deductibility for most of the costs of the business. Like my business wouldn't be profitable if I had to, I didn't get my 40% deduction on all my business expenses. So is that factored into the price, I guess, at this point that you can to overcome that?
Definitely. It is a high-end product, and anywhere you get it, you're going to pay a premium price. And the reason you're paying a premium price is because there is a lot more that this business needs to deal with than just a regular, everyday store or shop.
Yeah. So I assume one of the advantages right now is you guys have gone through all the BS to get this, creating your unique checkout and all these different things. So it probably limits some amount of competition, right? And then potentially you're there when the market opens up, as it opens up state by state, right? Is that sort of the idea?
Yeah, we've been around for over 2 years.
Okay.
So we've definitely been through, it is so similar to the THC CBD industry that they went through years ago. It's kind of, we're more at that where they were years ago, where they're now with psychedelics. Mm-hmm. And anybody who did a business doing THC and CBD years ago, if you ask them if they're getting into psychedelics, 99% of them are going to tell you, hell no, good luck. Because there is so many loops to jump through and hills to climb that other businesses do not deal with. It's exhausting in a lot of ways. But honestly, the intention of why we started this is what keeps us going. And it 100% came from wanting to help people. We get messages from people every single day about how they were suicidal. And this completely changed their lives. Like they have been depressed for years and years and years. And this has completely changed their life, like their marriage, their business, like the list goes on and on. And we know the massive impact that it makes on people. And so essentially, yes, there is a lot that we go through as a business that is different than maybe what other businesses go through. But I think for any business, there's hardship. Every single business, you're going to go through highs and lows. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started many businesses. This is not my first company. I've experienced massive highs and lows in all of those. It is, I always say, having your own business is the greatest growth tool that you will ever take on. It will teach you more about yourself than anything else. And for every single business owner, keeping in your eyes the intention of why you started is so, so important because it's what gets you through those really low days.
That's exactly what I say is nothing will teach you more about yourself for good or ill, right? Because like in the end, as I say, everything in a business is the owner's fault. They either did it, hired it, or allowed it to happen. So when you look yourself in the mirror, there's no one else to blame. And you can't, in other parts of your life, you can always find a boss, a company, something to blame. In this case, you can, right? So I agree with you there. And I think it's interesting, the comparison to cannabis, because for as much as cannabis has medical benefits, right? Probably one out of every 50 people buying cannabis are using it for glaucoma or something, pain relief. And you guys are probably flicked, right? I mean, I'm sure there's some people recreationally using psychedelics, but most people are using it for some kind of like enhancement or health, or so it is much more like a helping kind of, not a pharmaceutical yet, but sort of in that vein, right?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, people are flying in the masses right now down to Mexico for Ibogaine. And the reason that they're doing that is because...
Can you say what that is?
Ibogaine is another psychedelic. It is something that people are doing in macrodoses down in Mexico right now at clinics.
Sure.
And Joe Rogan just did a podcast on it. He had one of the governors from Texas who is they're trying to bring it to Texas right now because of what it is doing for vets and PTSD. And also what it's doing for people with addiction. It's literally taking people who are, IV heroin addicts, living on the streets, completely addicted for years, and within 1 to 2 days, curing them completely of addiction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. And then as far as is there anything you can discuss as far as the size of the business, either volume or revenue or anything like that? But you would be willing to share?
We actually...
And it's fine if you're...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. But certainly I would think you're going to see pretty rapid growth as these states open up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the industry itself, I believe I just read online, I think it's about to grow to a $3.3 billion industry. But a big part of that is that as it is opening up state to state, as, things are shifting, people are running to invest their money in these companies that are going to bring it into, I hate to put it in this way, but almost kind of like how you're seeing pharmaceuticals right now. So, I mean, pharmaceutical companies are racing right now to formulate their own psychedelic products. And so there's a lot pouring into this industry from a lot of different angles right now, not just from the angle that we're coming from, but people who are already in the industry of health and wellness. I want to put that in quotes, but that want a piece of it and that are trying to formulate products right now. So a lot of money is being dumped into it, and it's about to grow a lot in different ways.
Well, and even to add to that, so think about this. So in 2023, there was a study that was done where 8 million people took psilocybin mushrooms in the United States. And what was reported from that was 47% of these individuals, so nearly 4 million people, actually microdosed. So that's the demand that we're working with. And that's coming from, that wouldn't even be possible. That wouldn't even be present right now if we didn't have the incredible data from these really incredible institutions bringing in the clinical trials and the research and driving these forward in the ways that they have been.
What is the status of the clinical trials and the various things? Are we going to see these approved as FDA therapeutics at some point too?
Oh, they're already in process.
Yeah, they're way, yeah.
Well, they've already been working on that for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's far along in trials.
Yeah, I guess I was anticipating hearing that they were going to be out maybe last year, but it sounds like maybe over the next few years, it'll be a lot more. And then what do you guys see as the barriers for you going forward? I mean, is it really regulatory kind of loops? Is that the big barrier, or is it supply or what?
Honestly, it's the wild, wild west of the unknown because, right now we're just seeing different laws being put into place and they're different state to state. So it really is just, I think, seeing what comes next and allowing it to unfold, because there's different things that we thought were going to go through, different things that we thought were going to be approved in laws around different medicines, and they got smacked down. And then you'll see that it is completely approved and decriminalized in different places that we didn't expect. So it really is just every day staying on top of what is going on for us to be able to know what that's going to look like in the future. But I mean, just like you said, like you expected to see that like a year ago, and we expected to see it like a couple of years ago, like,
Yeah.
but we don't know. It's just this long unrolling.
What do you think you can learn from cannabis, if anything? I mean, obviously it's a slog, and it feels like, people talking about all these hoops they had to jump through, and blah, blah, but it was also like incredibly competitive, right? So at both times. So anything you guys can learn that will help you going forward?
This is how I think I'm going to answer it, is why they're going at this more slower pace is because if we look back on like the war on drugs and how that put us in this position to begin with, it's a fine line that we're walking. And a lot of that does come from how things were displayed in a lot of ways with how the cannabis played out. And even for business owners where, it was so expensive and they were making a lot of money. And then all of a sudden it's like dirt cheap and there's no profit. And now it's like every corner you go on, there's a dispensary and everybody has access to it. And it's just kind of tossed around in all these ways where it's very beneficial and very therapeutic in a lot of ways. And then completely the opposite and very destructive. And so I think that's a lot of what is driving the way that this is going right now, is to make sure how can we treat this in a way where it's going to be slightly different than that, where people have access in a lot of these different categories, therapeutic speaking, at retreats, things that are going to be most beneficial to the individual. But even beyond that, how can we make sure that this becomes something that is successful in the different categories that it's presenting itself in? So I think that's kind of happening in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So that's saying, like, we're just talking about FDA, right? That's probably going to be prescribed, used in clinics. But is this going to be like a retail, like I just walk up and get my microdose stuff, or how do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what a lot of drug development companies, pharmaceutical, the government, all of them are looking to take the approach because, one, they see the projected revenue of what this could be. But even beyond that is, yes, wanting to provide that therapeutic approach where, it might be a medication approach, but it's very synthesized, or it's very much so, the hallucinations are pulled out of the psilocybin is what some of the companies are talking about as an example. So all of it, within the therapeutic pharmaceutical space is revenue driven, of course. And that's also valuable in a lot of ways because there's going to be such a high percentage of our population of people that feel more comfortable and open to receiving it in that situation versus going to, Costa Rica or Mexico or even somewhere in the United States when it's legal to sit in a ceremony, or to go to Oregon and sit in their treatment center where it's a different approach. So I think all that to say, it's providing access. And I think that's what matters. But I don't think it's ever going to look one way where everybody's really happy with the way that it's going. It's going to be a lot of things.
I definitely don't think that anytime soon we're going to see it where it's like cannabis and you're going to be able to walk up to a store and just purchase it.
Absolutely not.
Works at a better business too, though, right? In the end.
That's like way down the road. That's not anytime, not even within the next 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at cannabis, I think, obviously once it was there, it became like a race to the bottom because there's very, like how do people respond to that in other industries, right? Coca-Cola, sodas are the same, right? So people use heavy branding, and there's a lot of problems with that because of the fractured nature of the market, right? You can't necessarily sell it nationwide. And so it feels like cannabis is caught in this weird, like they're a commodity, but they can't necessarily do some of the things that commodities do to control, to increase their value. And it feels like you guys will go down a different path, right here, because just the nature of it, it's not necessarily a recreational focused thing, and you're not going to have it on every street corner. And so it'll probably be a better business in the long run and do more good. And
yeah. I was going to add that, and we're good. No, we're good.
All right. Excellent. Well, so if people want to reach out, go to the website. And
they can just go to the website, goldenrulemushrooms.com. And they're more than welcome to always reach out to us for questions at hello@goldenrulemushrooms.com. We welcome everybody to experience this. But also, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're having questions, we're here to help. We have a lot of, like we shared, a lot of educational resources. And we want people to feel comfortable.
Cool. Well, that's great. Rachel, Tiffany, thanks so much for being on. And good luck with it.
Thank you.
I know it's going to be a lot of work, but it's a good mission. So
yes, thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Small Business Black Holes podcast with Alan Pentz. For more insights on mastering the new game, follow @apentz, that's APENTZ on X, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, in today's world, you don't follow the rules, you write them.